This is the Analysing Anfield podcast on the Blood Red channel, bringing you the best tactical and statistical analysis of Liverpool FC.
Hello everybody and welcome to this week's episode of Analysing Anfield, your tactics and analytics podcast, courtesy of the Blood Red channel. I'm Josh Williams and I'm joined by David Hughes. Dave, not a lot been going on, mate. To be honest. I'm sure you've enjoyed your 2 days off.
Well, I was trying to, mate. I was trying to, but it was hard with everything that was going on. Let me tell you, it was a very, for football fans, I think it was a very emotive couple of days, wasn't it? It's still all very raw and fresh for us. Obviously, with it being Wednesday, wild couple of days. I'm sure we'll get into it.
Well, it has been absolutely nuts. Like, I've never seen anything like it. This is my first experience of something like this happening while I've been, I suppose, working in football. And it's crazy, especially when your specialised field really is the whole analysis, tactics, data type stuff. The political side of football, I don't touch anywhere near as much. So when all this kind of goes down and you sat trying to write the tactics piece, I kind of... I think I sent you a message, Dave, saying it's like writing about a summer holiday that you're looking forward to this summer and how good it's going to be, and then you take a look to your right out your window, and the apocalypse is kind of happening. It was a little bit like that. So absolutely insane.
I think the message was something along the lines of, "You've picked a few good days to go off. Maybe stay off a little bit longer if you can."
Yeah, absolutely crazy.
Wild.
So, as I said, it's not really our bag, all this sort of stuff, but because it's so big, because the news is just crazy, and it now seems to be over and done with. We're recording on the Wednesday, early afternoon. It's probably important to put that in there, considering how quickly things have been transpiring lately. So, we are going to talk about it. We are going to address a little bit about, FSG. In particular, this is a Liverpool podcast, but we're going to try to do it in a bit of an Analysing Anfield way, I suppose. And then obviously a little bit of touching on Leeds and a look ahead to, I think it's Newcastle United on the weekend. So, but first of all, Dave, I mean, this Super League stuff. I mean, what's it been like for you? What are your thoughts on it first?
I mean, there's so many different ways to come at it, isn't there? Initial thoughts were, I'm bearing in mind, all our regular listeners know this already. We've got a good core group, but there may be the odd one or two who are jumping in who don't normally listen. I'm not a Liverpool fan. I haven't grown up a Liverpool fan. But even just from a general perspective, and even if I was a Liverpool fan from that perspective too, I just thought, as a scheme, as a plan, it sounded horrendous. I think the thing that I found really difficult to come to terms with was the closed shop idea. I just didn't like that. I don't like a sport without a reward for merit, if kind of warranting your position. I don't like the way we'll have American listeners. I don't love how the NFL works and other similar sports. I don't like that there isn't any kind of promotion relegation. I know they do things to have way around it, but I just didn't like it, Josh. I did not like it one bit. And okay, Liverpool, one of the teams who, quote unquote, were going to benefit from it. But I think even from a Liverpool point of view, it was a really bad idea. And I think it shows by how many people called out the club, how many Liverpool fans, staunch Liverpool fans who kind of, always lean towards giving the club the benefit of the doubt because it's who they love. For many people, it's the passion. And for so many of them to be so vocal, going against something they love so much, I think it just shows how bad it was. I wasn't happy, to be honest, Josh. And I mean, what about you? Obviously, being a Liverpool fan all your life, and what was that like? Just lost your mate on mute. Just pick it up from me asking you that.
Sound. Yeah, I think for me it was disappointment really above everything else. I think the first feeling that I just felt gutted, really down. And you mentioned about the closed shop stuff there. I think what I was more surprised by, obviously the closed shop stuff is quite ridiculous anyway, but what I was more surprised by, I couldn't believe that nobody at the club knew about this happening. I thought it was absolutely insane to go and announce something like this without even running it by the best manager in the club's past 30 years, past a title winning team. No one had a single clue that this was coming. And that's such a mad approach to take for something that is going to be, if it was pushed through, it was going to be groundbreaking. It was going to be new. It was going to be unprecedented. So to not even run it by the people who are going to actually have to make that change on the pitch and all that sort of stuff, it was mental, honestly mad. And it's all seemed to me, I tweeted last night, it's all seemed to me very, very rushed. I think it's been planned for years, but I think it's got to a point in the past couple of months maybe where they've kind of realised we need to really push this through now. And the reason for that is because UEFA were quickly working on a new Champions League format that they were announcing on a specific date. Big clubs in Europe are having bad seasons. Liverpool out the Champions League at the minute. Juventus is slipping. Teams like that not really doing particularly well. The debt of Barcelona and Real Madrid in particular is ridiculous, and they need a way out of that. Juventus's squad is a mess. Obviously, there's no fans in the stadiums, so any kind of backlash is limited because of the lack of fans in stadiums. So it felt rushed because they were desperate to get it through so quickly, and because of that, it just looked like such an amateur job. It looked put together on Microsoft Paint. It was a mess, honestly. And
just
from
on
a
that
Liverpool
point before you,
perspective,
sorry mate, just on that point quickly before I let you carry on, I do wonder whether the intention was, although they said it was, I do wonder whether the intention was to announce it on Sunday, or whether it was leaked and whoever was going to basically leak it, I can't remember who reported it first. Say was it the Telegraph or someone? I can't remember, but I wonder if they basically said to him, look, this is going to be run on Sunday, so if you want to announce it, you need to do it today, because the deadline seemed to just be getting pushed further back. It just feels such a hash, such a mess, that I wonder whether they were even planning on actually releasing the information on Sunday, or whether they wanted to try and iron out a few kinks first, but didn't get the opportunity to do so.
Yeah, I mean, from a Liverpool perspective, I was disappointed in the owners, obviously. I don't think that you can put this on the club. For me, this is not a club thing. Nothing to do with the fans, nothing to do with the players, nothing to do with Klopp, nothing even to do with the sporting director, as far as I'm aware. Complete ownership deal. So, from an FSG perspective, massively disappointed. And this episode's probably going to be a little bit controversial for some listeners, because it's FSG are a sensitive subject in the Liverpool fan base. So there'll be people listening to me now who will definitely disagree with me, and there'll be some who maybe agree. But for me, when it comes to FSG, I'm not FSG out, and I'm still not. And it'd take quite a bit for me to get there. And the reasons for all that, we're going to get into. There's a few reasons I want to point out, because I think it's really, really easy to see the negative side of what they've done since taking charge. But I think what they've done positively is a little bit more hidden and needs highlighting a little bit more. So I'm going to try to do that a little bit while still remaining, unbiased and stuff. But from an outsider's perspective, Dave, obviously, an Everton fan and things, what's your perception of FSG? What do they look like as owners to you?
I can see where the conundrum comes from this one, because it is really difficult. I think what they do really well, is they make Liverpool sustainable and their success more sustainable, because they're not a group who've come in and just ultimately keep, dipping into the money pit, trying to throw money at problems and resolve it. I think you've seen a lot of examples of that happen in the Premier League. Ironically, I think if you look across Stanley Park at Everton, they've had to do something like that, where obviously they're kind of having to pay a lot of money, bring in, spend a lot of money on players who aren't maybe transformational signings, just decent players, and try and build a squad of them to make Everton more competitive. But yeah, I think FSG have done really well in terms of making Liverpool more sustainable, and the kind of bringing in revenue to use as profits, as opposed to being reliant on their own money, which I know it does frustrate people. I get that, because if you had like City's owners in, Liverpool are attractive enough where they could probably have an ownership in place like that, and they'd be able to spend 200 million a summer or whatever, or within an FFP at least anyway. But that is a positive, that they are making Liverpool sustainable. On the other hand, there's a lot, I'll be honest, I don't like about FSG. I think, the actions, it's pretty clear that they've got almost like an Americanized philosophy on sports, things that have worked well over there, they're trying to implement over here. And they don't seem to be too impacted by things like increasing tickets prices, which is a really contentious issue in here in a city like Liverpool. They obviously tried to bump up the prices to, I think it was £77, didn't they, a couple of years ago, and the fans protested against that. I think the furlough thing was a massive mistake this time last year. Something that they kind of were willing to do again. I think, to summarise, because I don't want to go on too much, morally, I don't like what FSG are. It's as simple as that. Morally, I don't like what they do. Whether there's any room for that in this modern football industry is another question, but that's what I don't like about FSG. In terms of what they've done since they've come in, making Liverpool sustainable, successful, as we've seen, finding ways to make the right purchases in the transfer market, being very savvy. The recruitment's been first class for 5 years now without spending huge sums of money. All that needs to be applauded. That's really good business stuff. And maybe it's that business sense that they've got that sees the morals almost pushed to one side. But at a club like Liverpool in this city, Everton, Liverpool in this city, socialist city, all these things are huge. You may be able to get away with that in different clubs around Europe, but here they're huge, and I think FSG had just struggled to grasp that.
Yeah, I think you've summed that up pretty well, to be honest. And I would probably share your opinion. Firstly, I think in terms of the mistakes they've made in the past, I have no issue. Well, I have issue. I'm not particularly inclined to hold a grudge regarding stuff like that. If they are willing to turn around and own the mistake and apologise, and each time they have done that. So and some people inclined to overlook that. I think that's a big thing. For a billionaire company sort of thing to face up to a decision that it's made and recognise that it's a bad move, I think is a big deal. And I think it's a big deal in life when you come across people. I think it's a big deal to own your mistakes, and FSG have always been willing to do that. So that's something that I will always applaud. I think that's a big deal. And one of the reasons I think it's a big deal, by the way, is because you won't get that with a lot of other ownerships. Like for example, at the time of recording, we're still waiting, I think, for a Glazer apology, and that's highly unlikely to come, I assume.
Probably right.
Yeah. But on in terms of this mistake that they've made, I can't defend them. I don't think they deserve defending either. I think this one, everything that's going to come their way as a result of this, and the grovelling maybe that they're going to have to do, is justified. I'm not going to defend them when it comes to this decision. I think it was absolutely daft to go about it the way they did. So naive. And I think the big frustration about them is these mistakes, although I have no issue with them being made, because I think you ultimately need to make mistakes to be better. They keep making the same or very similar mistakes, and that's what's frustrating. It's like seeing someone burn the hand in fire, and then a few months later put the same hand in the same fire, and then a few months later put the same hand in the same fire. What are you doing? Just stop it.
Just coming in from different directions, doing it and open that,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
It's all right, yeah.
And it's not even a case of stop putting your hand in the fire. It's just, before you do it, just talk to us. Just consult with the fan base. Liverpool's fan base is massive, and FSG have really played into it, especially on the marketing side. This means more and all that sort of stuff. It's because of the support in the stadium. But when it comes to these kinds of decisions, big moves, just talk to us. I don't know why they don't do it, and they've been very good in the past at learning from previous happenings in the sporting industry, I'd say. But when it comes to the cultural side of the club, their tradition, fan beliefs and things like that, values, they don't seem to be learning particularly much. And that, without doubt, for me, is the biggest concern attached to them. And it's something that they do need to improve. And as I said, I do like that he apologises. But this apology just felt a bit, what did you expect?
Yeah.
What was you thinking?
Yeah.
I don't mind a genuine apology when you've went into something and genuinely not realised, but how could you have not realised with this? How was it not twigged beforehand, where someone said, hang on, might be a bad move, should we think about this, or should we run it by Jurgen Klopp at least? I mean, it's just mad.
Yeah.
Going to add on that one, Dave? Or?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think they're forever underestimating, the kind of implications these actions have. I think they expect a little bit of backlash in parts. I have no doubt they expect a backlash from UEFA. They expected a few things to be said, but they just underestimate how kind of passionate people are about this stuff. Again, the big thing for me, what really stood out was, I thought, and I'm just using Liverpool fans as the example. I'm not playing up to the crowd, but it's a Liverpool podcast. It's the most relevant. I just thought the way Liverpool fans on the whole, barring one or two who are maybe really afar anyway, so it doesn't really matter what's going on. Maybe the new Liverpool fans, and they only want to see the big fixtures anyway. But I think 90% of Liverpool fans were like, this is a terrible idea.
I'd probably say above 90%,
Maybe. It's hard, isn't it, to get a full picture from what basically an echo chamber of the likes of social media and people you speak to. Definitely people I've spoke to personally have been very critical of it. I've seen examples of the opposite on social media, but as I said, it's few and far between. And with the greatest respect, it doesn't look like maybe authentic, Liverpool fans who've been there for many years type thing, or just enjoy football. Maybe it's newer Liverpool fans who are jumping on the bandwagon and can't see a lot wrong with it. But what I was going to say anyway, get back to the point. I think the way Liverpool fans have kind of been like, look, we really enjoy, winning these pinnacles again, being the best team in England, best team in Europe, picking up, 4 trophies over the last 18 months or something. That's all really good, but we want that on merit, and we want that to continue being the case, as opposed to it being this, closed shop where you're guaranteed to just be in the same division every year and getting a much better opportunity than everyone else. I just think I'm just so impressed because, as I said, it's so easy to have like an ego about it and be like, well, we're so good, we're brilliant that we deserve this. But it's felt to me like the argument's been like, no, the part of it is earning the right to be successful and go and win things, as opposed to it being handed to you. And I just think it's been impressive. And thankfully the reaction's been the same for most of the other, quote unquote top 6 sides. It has been a really good response. It would be nice if it would continue into the Champions League reforms, because I don't think they're that much better, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I think a few of them reforms are to appease these bigger clubs who seem to feel a sense of entitlement, really, and that's not how football works. You're not entitled to anything, and any team that goes onto a field and thinks that they're entitled to something will probably get overrun, and will realise very quickly that that's not the way it works. You need to commit to everything. You need to earn your right to win the games, basically, to perform at the highest level and stuff. So, but I think from an FSG perspective, I just need to kind of highlight maybe why it's a bit of a dangerous game. I feel like it's a bit of a dangerous game for the solution to be FSG out or something like that. I think the solution, although it's been the solution for a while and it feels a bit overplayed now, I think the solution is more along the lines of bridging the gap in communication, like kind of just getting a bit closer as opposed to the way that they currently operate. Because as owners, I think they've been really, really good, particularly in a sporting sense, that their sporting expertise that they've applied since learning from America has been invaluable, really, and it's resulted in Liverpool really climbing to the top of Europe, top of the world, really, last season. And I think, for example, I've wrote a piece on this, actually. It hasn't gone up yet, but it'll go up very, very soon. But when he first took over, right, Anfield was deemed to be a bit of a mess, and the previous owners were talking about this new Stanley Park Stadium and all this. There was plenty of pressure on John Henry's shoulders when he took charge and to build this new stadium and stuff. And based on his understanding of sport, he kind of looked at Anfield, looked at what had happened in the past, and made a bit of an alternative decision to keep Anfield because of how difficult it would be to replicate what Anfield is in a complete new home. And I think that's been a huge, huge move that stems from the sporting expertise held by FSG. Obviously, what they've learned in Boston, Fenway Park and stuff with the Red Sox. And obviously, some other Premier League clubs since have moved. Arsenal have done it. Spurs have done it. West Ham have done it. Everton are going to do it. And certainly 2 of those clubs so far, I think there's an element of regret there in terms of how difficult it's been since to recreate the same atmosphere. I'm not sure if you have any fears attached to that, Dave, regarding Goodison.
Yeah, naturally. I think that the problem with Goodison is you've got no choice. If there was a choice to it, I think on that one, there is no choice. Everton have to move because Goodison is tired as a stadium, and certainly in 2021. But yeah, of course it is, because it's a really intimidating place to go, and similar to Anfield. And obviously, if you completely changing the dynamics of the stadium, then because if you think now of those places you've named, I don't think you look at West Ham as an intimidating place to go. You see it as a tough game on the pitch. You think it's not a easy place to go in terms of what's happening on the pitch, but in terms of intimidation, you don't really say West Ham is, and West Ham was always a quite intimidating place to go. Arsenal, you don't look at that again as an intimidating place to go. It can be a tough game on the pitch, but not intimidating. And Tottenham, I don't think you do with Tottenham either. Maybe it's a little bit early to be, Tottenham have only had maybe a season before COVID kicked in there, so it might be a little bit unfair to be highlighting that one. But it is a risk, without doubt. It's a risk.
But I think you did more so though when you were facing Arsenal at Highbury, or if you were facing West Ham at Upton Park. And I think the decision made by Henry back then, I think has been a really productive decision. And I think above everything, really, for me, it offers an insight into what I've already said, his sporting expertise that he's been able to apply at Liverpool. Liverpool were clueless. You know, I in the piece that I've wrote, before Liverpool changed ownership, the final transfer window they had in the summer under Hicks and Gillette, Liverpool signed Paul Konchesky, Christian Poulsen, Val Morelos, a few others, just complete no marks who ended up doing nothing for the club, basically.
Yeah. Not really Liverpool level players, really.
No, and FSG were quick to move into some sort of age criteria. Initially, I think it was a little bit too young, and there was a bit of conflict there. And now it's quite established. And although now it feels like common sense to sign players just as they're approaching the peak, you see so many clubs across the country who just go and sign players who are essentially finished. And a lot of that stems from the ownership and the lack of direction, the lack of expertise. Like, you think of the Glazers again, what the Glazers have done since Ferguson left. They haven't had a clue. They clearly haven't had a clue.
No.
I'm going to use Everton as a bit of an example, Dave, because I think Moshiri, although his intentions are good, far better than the Glazers and stuff, I still think there's an element of naivety to the way he's behaved and the spending he's kind of funded. He comes across to me as not particularly knowing exactly how to achieve what he wants to achieve.
Yeah, I think everything. To be fair, I think since Marcel Brand's come in, it's got better. There's a direction, but in terms of before that, and I'm not, saying Brands is still on side with Brands, but I think if you look at those 2 first years when he come in charge, it was like, look, all this money, the success will now follow. But as we witnessed, closely, it didn't. It became a bit of a mess, and even now, because we look at the squad, the pair of us, don't we, and on other podcasts and part of our job, and there's so much deadwood just from that period. It can be really disastrous if you get it wrong. And 2 clubs you've just named, Everton and United, have in the past, really got it wrong and paid for several seasons after, because you're stuck with these, expensive assets that you can't get rid of.
Yeah, exactly. And I think part of the reason Liverpool's whole operation has become a lot more refined, a lot more effective, is the interest in data analysis. Obviously, those who have seen Moneyball will have seen John Henry's character appearance at the end of the film, and obviously he was offering Billy Bean a bit of a mouth-watering contract because of his appreciation for what data can do to a sports institution. And Liverpool have been on the data train now for over 10 years. Michael Edwards, who's now the club's sporting director, he arrived at the club in 2011, I think, as head of analytics. And it's just kind of developed from there, really. There's now several PhDs behind the scenes, absolutely analysing the games to the nth degree and gaining insights through that, gaining findings through that, spotting little edges that we can exploit. And Liverpool are recognised as market leaders. And much of that stems from John Henry's early interest in using data to gain an edge over these wealthier opponents. And again, if we use Manchester United as an example, they are, as of only the past 12 months, starting to look into an actual data team that they're going to try and establish. I don't think it's established yet, but I think I've read about it being an 8-man team to deliver data insights regarding recruitment and stuff like that. Liverpool have had that in place for about 10 years. So, again, in comparison to an ownership like the Glazers, FSG are on a completely different level when it comes to sporting intellect, just applying inside a sports institution. And they've transformed Liverpool through the application of data, through the appointments of, Jurgen Klopp. Capturing Jurgen Klopp was massive.
And by the way, Josh, on that, sorry, because I think it's fair to point out to it, they kind of pulled the trigger quite early on Rodgers, didn't he, to get that done? Like, drew against Everton, tough game, and still kind of, not doing horrendous, but when he was available, they knew he'd have the transformational impact he wanted.
Yeah, and I think as far as I'm aware, before they got Rodgers, Klopp was top of the shortlist, or certainly near the top. But obviously, the way Klopp is, his loyalty and stuff like that, he was unwilling to leave Dortmund. So, FSG were aware of what I suppose what Jurgen Klopp will become well before he reached that stage of his managerial career. And it's worth saying as well, Manchester United tried to get Jurgen Klopp. Ed Woodward, I think it was, maybe sat down with him, described United as something like the Disneyland of the football world, was he? And it just didn't convince him. He just wasn't sold. And obviously, by the time Liverpool chased him, FSG invited him to New York and stuff. Obviously, Klopp thought very differently, and FSG managed to get him under the wing and capture him and stuff. So, and Klopp's done a lot of transformation for Liverpool on the field, bridging the gap between the players and the supporters. Just so much. So, and again, people think that Klopp just came, and obviously he did, but he was captured by FSG. FSG wanted to get him in. There was a lot of talk at the time about Carlo Ancelotti, and I am inclined to think that maybe an owner who was a bit more naive, bit less inclined to look at the numbers behind the stuff and to look at specifically what's needed in the sporting sense, would have employed Ancelotti, because he at the time he had a better CV than Klopp. So I think Edwards as well, appointing Edwards as sporting director, the club's first ever sporting director, and I think at the time one of the first few that had been appointed in the Premier League. That is an American thing, that stems from the concept of a general manager, which is presidents in the likes of baseball and stuff. For Liverpool to do that again was a big move, but again it stemmed from FSG's sporting expertise, and Liverpool have really benefited from that over the years. It's one of the reasons why Liverpool have such an incredible team at the minute, which is one of the reasons why I don't think you can really focus too much on the whole net spend thing, although it's a little bit frustrating at times, especially in the January just gone. I do believe they should have bought a centre-back. But in my opinion, net spend doesn't really indicate much more than your ability to sell high and buy low, as long as you've got a good squad. If your squad's strong, that's all it offers an insight for me. And I think in comparison to other teams who've been inclined to spend more over the years, but their current squad is nowhere near Liverpool's level, so that spending has been, redundant.
Yeah, goes back to that point at the start, doesn't it? That they've basically been really good business wise for the long time now. It didn't take them long to start really positively impacting the club from a business point of view. It's just, as I said at the start, morally, maybe there's no room for the kind of beliefs and things that Liverpool, celebrate as a culture around the club. And I think the clash now going forward, because it's been bubbling for a while, if you think about the success Liverpool have had and everything you just said for the last few minutes there, if you think about all that, it seemed ridiculous to think that so many people would be unhappy with the owners. And this is before what's just happened, by the way, this week. It would seem ridiculous, but yet it's there because there's this friction about the kind of morals FSG have and how they do things. And, I think after this now, it's going to be really difficult to settle back down to kind of just being a happy relationship again. I don't really know what happens. I mean, it could do, but it does to me personally, Josh, just from the outside looking in, like this might be a point of no return. I don't know what that means, because I don't think you can just decide, if you're FSG, you just go, you know what, forget this, forget that last 10 years. We'll just put Liverpool on the market and move on. I think FSG have invested too much into it now, and whether that would even be a good thing for Liverpool, I don't know.
Well, one concern I've got with that is, let's say they do put Liverpool on the market. What are the chances that the replacement owners will be better? You know what I mean? That's a really sensitive topic, that, because I think it's highly, highly unlikely that they're going to be better in a sporting sense. But and the moral sense remains to be seen. I think in an ideal world, to be honest, Dave, what you want from an ownership group is the sporting sense of FSG and almost a moral sense of the way Everton have been run in the past few years, really. I think if you were to merge the two of them, you've kind of got a perfect situation there. But Everton maybe lack what Liverpool have got, and Liverpool in the past few years lack what Everton have had. Everton have always retained that connection to society, that connection to the city. I think they're more inclined to essentially do what is right from a Liverpool perspective, from a scout's perspective, really. Whereas FSG, Liverpool are a bit more global in the thinking, and I understand why. But at the same time, you can't ever forget your roots. So, yeah, I don't want this to turn into some, mad positive FSG rant or so. I just think it's really important to provide a balanced view on the ownership, which is difficult at the current time because of what's happened. But I am just inclined to think, be careful what you wish for if you do think Liverpool needs to sell to someone else, because there's every chance that next person won't have the sporting expertise, and he might also fall short in the moral department. It's really difficult. So,
Josh, is it for you better the devil you know, as they say?
What do you mean by that specifically?
So basically, it's like it's a term of So better to almost know the shortcomings of what you'll already have than potentially going into a new kind of working relationship with someone else who might have them a lot worse. At least FSG's faults, but you also know the positives. Whereas you don't know what another potential buyer might bring with them. What kind of issues.
Yeah. I think that definitely comes into it. And just another thing on that, but I think people are inclined to want an owner that just spends. People want an owner really a bit like Abramovich, I suppose, who just pumps money into the club relentlessly, and every year they make a loss in the transfer market because they're just going and buying Kai Havertz and Timo Werner and all this. And I think although that is obviously a nice thing for supporters to get excited about new signings and stuff, I think that is also very much in conflict with what Liverpool are as a club. Although Liverpool have been conflicted with FSG's model perspective at some points, I think an owner coming in for Liverpool and going and spending, 200 million on Mbappe or something, for me, that's very much in conflict with Liverpool as a city, as a club. It's just not the way I want my club to do things. I like the way Liverpool have done business in the past few years. I like that we run in a sustainable manner. I like that we've got no debt. I like that we don't just go and buy backups for 60 million. A fourth choice centre back for 42 million or so from a team that's just been relegated. Liverpool obviously spend. Don't get me wrong, but the excessive wealth that gets really almost naively used and careless almost at times, that would also conflict with Liverpool as a club. It's difficult to be really aligned in that sense in the modern day, just because of everything that's happened to the game over the past few years. The globalization and stuff, the foreign owners and things. It really is a difficult balance to strike. But I just wanted to, in light of everything that's happened, all the negativity surrounding FSG, the deserved negativity surrounding FSG, I just wanted to ensure that supporters are aware of the sporting positives that they've delivered over a few years. They are the reason for me that Liverpool are one of the sharpest clubs out there, really, when it comes to recruitment, when it comes to data, when it comes to decision making. The manager, the sporting director, the player, everything. It's all been developed since we signed Christian Poulsen under the previous ownership. So yeah, unless you've got much more to add on this, Dave, we can move on really to the games. But it's obviously been an important topic really that we couldn't really overlook, could we?
Yeah, no, we've dedicated good 40 minutes onto it there. I think what you said there was a good way to round it off. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens, only from this point going on, because I don't think it's just going to be, as they say, it's what is it? Tomorrow's chip paper. I think it might linger a little bit longer than that. But yeah, no, I think we were right to look into it.
Yeah, bridges certainly need mending. I think This is a difficult one. This, as I said, they don't really deserve any kind of support at the minute. I don't think it's right to even try to understand their perspective. It was just a mad move. But it looks like it's the end of it anyway. It looks like it's kind of over. That 48-hour period, complete nuts apocalypse, and then reverse will be acting like nothing's happened. It's crazy, but
well, I think it's so mad that nobody's even spoke about Mourinho getting sacked. Like,
yeah,
nobody has even spoke about it, which kind of sums up maybe where his career's at. Because 15 years ago would have been big news, and obviously something else could quite easily gazump it.
No, but no one really spoke too much about the Leeds United game either. And I must be honest, when I was watching it and when Liverpool conceded late on, I didn't feel overly fussed, because in that position at the time, I was like, well, what's the point? We've already qualified for this franchise league. You know, it's just this result even matter? But thankfully, it did. Liverpool played, in my opinion, David, I think the first half was really good, but the second half was one of them. It was very much a tale of two halves. Liverpool dominated the first, Leeds dominated the second. Have you taken a look at the race map?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, and I mean, it perfectly summarises what you said. You know, if you go into half time, obviously Liverpool get the goal 1-0 up, and better side, deserving of the lead, you'd probably say, and then. Yeah, second half. You made a really good point when we spoke away from the podcast, and you said about Liverpool just looking a little bit fatigued. And you know, if you think about it, you're playing probably the fittest side in the Premier League, and sometimes teams live on reputations like that, and they're not always warranted. But I think Leeds are, for me, right up there. They've played a lot fewer games as well than Liverpool, and they probably had a little bit extra motivation, and they were chasing the game, 1-0 down. So that kind of was the perfect storm for them to kind of throw it on late in the second half, and obviously get something out of it.
Yeah, Liverpool actually won the expected goals, which I'm surprised about, because Leeds had a few what felt like clear-cut opportunities, really. Alisson got us out of stick, I think, about 3 times before he eventually conceded. But the expected goals on the day still probably catches a draw. There's not much in it. 1.8 for Leeds, 2.3 for Liverpool. And in terms of the shots, Leeds had 12, Liverpool had 17. And interestingly, Liverpool's possession only 40%, which is, I'm going to check it as I'm speaking, but is probably right up there with the lowest all season.
Right down there with the lowest.
Yeah, right down there. Yeah, in fact, it is. It's level with the home leg against RB Leipzig. Both of those games, Liverpool didn't lose either of them, but both of those games, Liverpool posted 40% possession. So strange. I think this one, as you said, could be put down to a little bit of tiredness. I do want to flag how good Liverpool were in the first half, specifically in relation to Leeds' man-marking system. We did flag it last week, and I think I wrote a piece on it. But just the way Liverpool approached the man-marking scheme that Bielsa favours, I thought was perfect. It was exactly what you need to cause that system problems. Lots of rotations, no players in very few fixed positions. Lots of ball carries from the free man. So, say for example, there was lots of mazy runs from Kabak and Fabinho at times. That was planned, I'm inclined to think, because of the man-marking scheme. They were the free men, so they go and drive forward and commit a man to them. Firmino was dropping off into midfield, carrying a man with him, and then the space that opened up, Liverpool were darting into. Lots of blindside runs, behind a player who's getting man-marked. So really effective performance, I thought, and it should have been one in the first half. Liverpool should have scored more than one in the first half, but didn't. So frustrating, but thankfully, I think West Ham lost. Yeah, they did, to Newcastle, and Chelsea drew. So before we start speaking about Newcastle, Dave, just quick thoughts on top 4 race.
Yeah, well, you know what? Before we come on air, I was having a look at the table, and it kind of just felt like we're in the same position, but we're just a game less now. I mean, probably worth flagging as well that it was a good result on Friday night because Everton and Tottenham drew, which, although Everton are, for me, definitely not in the Champions League race now, they have still got that lingering 1-game advantage, and if they won that game in hand, they'd just be a point behind Liverpool, which seems ridiculous because it feels like they've been terrible for ages. Maybe I'm being a little bit extreme there, but yeah. So in terms of Champions League race, I think the top 3 will stay as it is, and it's just really tough. I think every weekend we'll have an idea of what's happening between now and the end of the season. I think there's about 4 or 5 game weeks left, and it's for me. It's out of Chelsea, West Ham, Liverpool. I'd be nice from a neutral point of view. I'd like to see West Ham push both teams to the end, just because it's nice to see a new face in there. I've just got a feeling, though, Josh. I'm not writing Liverpool off. I don't want any listeners or viewers to be getting annoyed with me. I'm not writing them off, but I've just got a feeling Chelsea may edge it. I don't know, because I'm doubting myself now, because I'm thinking two cup competitions as well, haven't they? Champions League semi-final, FA Cup final.
I think I saw the tweet, actually. I'm not sure if I'm right in saying this, but I think when they beat City, I think because of now the FA Cup and the Champions League and stuff, I think they play now every weekend, midweek, until the end of the season. Liverpool have 1 game a week. Going into this, actually, Dave, I sent a newsletter out last week on this exact thing, and I actually said at the time I thought it was out of Liverpool, Leicester, because I was so confident really that Chelsea would do it, because I mean the defense is ridiculous at the minute. The attack isn't firing as much, but when you're allowing just virtually nothing on the defensive side, it's going to help you a lot. And I rate Tuchel and stuff, so I thought Chelsea were going to do it, and I thought Leicester would maybe have a little bit of a wobble, but Leicester are now in a much better position because they've got a game in hand over the 3 teams you've just mentioned, and they're still above them anyway. So I don't know. I think if we're close to Leicester in and around the final 3 games, when they've got a really tough run and we've got an easy one, I think we can jump Leicester. But if it's out of Liverpool and Chelsea, flip a coin.
Flip a coin.
I haven't got a clue when it comes to that one. That's really hard, that one. But I do think, though, that what I've just mentioned there regarding the schedule, that certainly benefits Liverpool. Liverpool with 1 game a week compared to Chelsea, but having to compete with Real Madrid, and that's going to benefit Liverpool a lot. So we will see. But to ensure that Liverpool are in this race, we need to beat Newcastle on the weekend. General thoughts on Newcastle, Dave?
I feel like we talk about them all the time. It's just being, hopefully I don't think no Newcastle fans will be listening, but
hopefully not.
They've outstayed their welcome. I think that this chapter of Newcastle United, at least, have outstayed the welcome in the Premier League. Not a nice side to watch, and tend to be right down there on most performance metrics. That being said, Josh, just results I'm looking at here, by the way, just results. Unbeaten in 3 and scored 2 or more goals in each. It's so very un-Newcastle like, and obviously they had a big win against West Ham, albeit West Ham were down to 10 men. So, to answer your general thoughts, mate, I don't love them.
Do you know what, though? I'm actually looking at the numbers now, just some of the basic ones so far, and they're actually not as bad as I thought they were going to be in terms of I've just looked at the basics in terms of goals scored, goals against, expected goal difference per 90 per match, and they're not actually in the bottom three for any of them. Like in terms of goals scored, for example, they've scored 35. That is more than 7 teams, including Wolves, including Brighton, Burnley, Fulham. And in terms of goals against, they have conceded. Well, they're not that great when it comes to goals against. Sheffield United, Southampton, and West Brom are the only 3 teams who've conceded more. But in terms of the XG though, so the XG for and the XG against per match, against each other, they're about 15th, but about around 15th, 16th best in the league. Not too in between like a Southampton, Burnley type performance.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I expected a bit worse.
I think, yeah. Well, that's probably reputation. This is from last season. He looked so bad last season. The first 6 months of this season, he was so bad. But yeah, I'm looking with you now. And to be fair, the underlying numbers are painting them as a team in around 14th to 17th, and I think that's pretty much exactly where they are now. The 15th. So for once, the underlying numbers are quite accurate on this one. They're kind of a bottom 6 or 7 sides.
Yeah, I mean for shots per match, they are 15th, and shots faced per match, they're actually 19th, which isn't too much better, but I've just saw something there, Dave. I'm gonna have to flag it for you. Do you know what I'm gonna say?
Is there going to be shots attempted?
They actually take more shots per match than Everton.
Yeah,
that's quite amazing.
Oh, I know, mate. I've been all season. I'm already hated at Goodison because I'm doing an Analysing Anfield every week. Do a lot of Liverpool. I'm very objective, as people hopefully know by now. And whilst Everton have been winning all these games, I've been kind of whispering in the background, I don't think this is very sustainable, lads. And surely enough, it's fell off a cliff a little bit. So, yeah, that doesn't surprise me, to be honest, Josh.
What I will say is Everton's expected goals per match is considerably better. So
yeah,
that obviously suggests that although Newcastle are taking more shots, Everton are taking better shots from better locations, basically. So that's a positive. But in terms of what Liverpool are going to face, yeah, it's very much Newcastle, really, isn't it? We've previewed them a couple of times on this podcast now, considering we're going for a few years, and each time we don't really have a lot to add. They don't really seem to change too much. They're still playing 3 at the back, despite a bit of a shift to 4 at the back over like a 2-month period, maybe. 3-5-2 has been the formation the past 2 games. They've won both of those, so I expect that to continue. And I do think above a lot of clubs, above a lot of teams in the league, they're probably a really good example of the whole you're only as good as your players shout, because I think specifically since Callum Wilson and particularly Alan St-Maximin came back into proceedings, they've just offered that difference on the pitch. That they're able to create something out of nothing. They've got that spark, and so if you're a non-believer in that, go and look at Newcastle without those 2 players compared to with them.
Yeah. There's a stark difference, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean Liverpool are going to have to deal with those 2 because I think Wilson's been on the bench the past few.
But back, yeah.
I expect, he's been on the bench past 2 games at least, I think. But this game, considering he's been easing back slowly, he can probably start this one. And I expect St-Maximin the same. So, it's away from home, so it could actually be a bit of a trickier game than you'd think.
Yeah, because players like that have a booster when they come back, don't they? And I've just had a look now. Wilson played over half an hour against Burnley and just under half an hour against Newcastle. So yeah, he's firmly going to start. And St-Maximin's really good. He can never stay fit. I think he'd probably be getting touted for bigger moves if he could.
Yeah, but I think generally their set piece threat, I'm just checking it now, I think it's generally better than normal. No, it's not. They've scored 4 goals from corners. Liverpool have scored 5. So I expected that to be a bit of an issue, actually, because we conceded the set piece against Leeds, and Leeds, A, aren't that great from set pieces, and B, aren't even the tallest side. So I expected to encounter more problems against Newcastle than Leeds with that one, but, maybe not, you never know. But yeah, it's going to be a case of Liverpool dominating the ball. It's going to be a case of breaking down a block and stopping counter-attacks. So Liverpool are certainly nowhere near as good at doing that this season, as flawlessly as they were last season. But given that Newcastle are kind of safe, I mean, looking at the odds on 538, yeah, they're pretty much safe according to 538. They've got Sheffield United obviously down, West Brom 98% likely to go down, Fulham 90% likely to go down, Burnley 7% likely to go down, and then Newcastle 4% likely to go down. So they're pretty much safe. Liverpool have got, now that the Super League's gone out the picture, Liverpool have got a lot to play for. So you'd like to think that'll have an impact on how the match goes, Dave.
Yeah, I'm just looking at that home form, and it's unbelievable bad it's been.
Newcastle's?
No, Liverpool's.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just because obviously it's at home, isn't it? And I'm like, it's still, that Villa game is the only win, I think, in 2021. And obviously we're at the end of April, and I'm just like, I keep expecting, and basically what I'm leading to here, I'm just thinking, you kind of just expecting it to be a routine win, but Liverpool just haven't been doing them at Anfield this year, have they?
No, I think it's one of them. We kind of need to. I mean, we say this a lot of the time lately, but we kind of need to get a lead in this one. This is going to be a difficult one to manage if we don't really score first. And I think last time we faced these at Anfield, they scored first. Actually, I think Jethro Willems scored an absolute banger.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, top binner.
Yeah, ask him to do it again. But yeah, predictions on this one, Dave.
Yeah, I'm still going to back a Liverpool win, just because you have to back it with how you think it should go, and Newcastle won't be looking at this as the game that they need to get the points in to just confirm that safety. I'm going to go with Liverpool 2-0.
Yeah, I'm also going to go with 2-0. But there's part of me that thinks this could be a lot trickier than many are expecting. This is not the Newcastle that really spiralled a few weeks back. They seem to have a bit of a bounce lately, and whether that'll still be the case now that they may be on the beach, we never know. But hopefully we'll get the win and go into next week with something to play for, basically, because we have Manchester United, funnily enough. So that'll be a good one to preview.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah, Newcastle and then United. For some
reason, cold, that one.
Yeah, for some reason, surprisingly, we face United. Mind you, I suppose no fans are there, but we face United at 3 p.m. on a Saturday, which feels very, is that the first time ever?
Yeah, I mean, it must be. That's a great shout, because that wouldn't have happened recently, would it?
No.
Yeah, okay. And that's at Old Trafford, isn't it? Old Trafford. Yeah. It doesn't feel like there's that much talk about it.
No. It's strange. Maybe it's something that's going to get changed or something that hasn't been changed on Google, which is what I'm looking at. But yeah, a bit of a weird one.
It's such a strange season, isn't it? Let's be honest. Such a bizarre year.
Yeah. I mean, we're only 4 months in, but we've already experienced pretty much everything you need.
Yeah.
So yeah, Dave, thanks for joining us, mate.
I've just realised, Josh, is it bank holiday maybe? No, it isn't. You're right. Okay, I'm out. Yeah. Thank you, mate. Cheers.
And yeah, we will be back next week. Hopefully, football stays normal between now and the next time we record. Certainly, that wasn't the case last week. Thanks for tuning in. And yeah, stick with the club. We'll see you next week.